Awesome. All right, well, welcome. I have pulled together some data for things to prepare for the transition away from ILLiad and WorldShare, some statistics to start to pull, ways to be tracking some of your data, some reminders. This document is available on our SharePoint, so if at any point you want to refer back to it, see some of the recommendations that I've made, feel free to access it. At Chico State, we are an ILLiad library that is transitioning to just WorldShare in the next coming months. But if you are a WorldShare ILL user, some of this content is going to be less tailored towards you, except for the middle portion. There's still some good data that you should take into account and some things to consider for when you're transitioning away from these platforms. But this is mostly focused towards our ILLiad library. So anyone with an ILLiad account that is then going to have that deactivated coming soon or completely go away from ILLiad and WorldShare. The first thing I want to go into is a notice and a reminder. What I am currently doing to prepare for this transition is I have actually made a calendar reminder for the day before my ILLiad will go inactive that will say all of the reports that I need to make sure to pull, all of the content that I want to be pulling. Don't worry about capturing all of this. This is part of what is being presented in the screenshot or in the presentation. But like I said, this is a reminder in my Outlook saying the day before it's closing, I need to be pulling all of these reports. I need to make sure that I make all of these reports, and it's going to send me reminders because after that date, all of your data is not going to be as accessible. It's not going to be accessible. So keep that in mind. Make sure that you, however you are tracking or keeping track of things that you need to do, if it's a physical write down, just make sure that you note on your calendar these dates. So May 30th is the last day that you can change your contract with OCLC WorldShare if you have a start date of July 1st for all of your contracts coming due, which I believe is consistent for all CSUs. Which means if you are making any changes and you want to make sure that all of your adjustments to all of your contracts have been made, this is the last date that you can notify them by. The next one that's really important is the last date that you can access your data is going to be June 30th. For that reason, I did the 27th as my day to pull all my data from my existing resource sharing platform that's going to be deactivated. Some of the reports that you're going to be pulling, again, this is much more tailored towards our ILLiad libraries, are going to be pretty simple. So the first one is your okay, your tabs. Mhm. Okay, I may have to show a different screen. That's okay. So the one that you're going to want to be doing is you're going to actually open up your queues. Each one of your queues might look different compared to what my institution has coded each one of these to be titled. So specifically going and looking at borrowing, which is the one that I'm a bit more familiar with. Library use only may not look the same. All of those sorts of things are not going to be the same necessarily verbiage wise, but the important thing is if there's anything in your queues, you should pull that data out. It's really simple to open up in ILLiad your data. So item shipped is an example for lending, and then hit the export button. So this is going to be everything that's listed in your ILLiad account as checked out or processed to a lender or to a borrower. This is a good way to keep track of what you currently have outstanding still. Ideally, you have stopped loaning or borrowing through this platform. If not now, very soon. But another way that you are going to need to cross-reference and confirm that you're tracking this data and that it is accurate to what is being listed in your catalog as checked out is you're also going to need to pull an ALMA report. So each one of us codes your checkouts differently. And what I mean is, here at Chico State, we have taken the time to individually add all of our libraries by acronyms from ILLiad into our fulfillment managed patron services. So this is a patron that has been created for each one of our institutions. I'm not saying that you have to do that. This is not the recommendation, but the big thing that you need to keep in mind is oh, what your user group is. So when you have a book checked out to ILLiad, you process it in Alma as well, saying this book is checked out. And the important reason why we do that is, for example, we currently have a book that is checked out right here and shows the classification resource sharing long loan. So this book is checked out on long loan to the user group for us, ILL. If you go into your analytics, and again, your system may be configured differently, but you have a user group that is defined as resource sharing for ILLiad that's going to change your patrons catalog, like your visible patron catalog saying this item is on loan on resource sharing in some form. And to make a report of that, you are going to want to go into analytics. And again, each institution is going to be a little different. Here at Chico State, as I said, we use an ILL user group, whatever you called it, whatever your definition is, you're going to want to create something similar to this. Just saying, this is everything that we have on loan for resource sharing outside of Rapido to this specific user group. Your results should pull up a bunch of individual records. You can choose whether or not you want to include loss status. I did just because I like to track that sort of data and confirm that I had sent a bill to the borrower, that request has been fulfilled, closed in my ILLiad, just crossing all my T's, dotting all my I's. As a result, when I export this file, I get, as I said, 1, 2, Long Beach, right? This is a full list of every single loan that I have. 194 of them. That doesn't actually match how many I have on record as checked out in ILLiad, because again, I did include those lost items. It is a good idea to start now and make sure that this list that you need to create is accurate to what your, whatever resource sharing platform you're using has as a checkout loan, right? So you're gonna be cross-referencing and saying, yes, I have record that this is checked out to an institution, and yes, I have record that it is in fact either on loan still, coming back, that sort of thing.
And can I quickly, do you use the NSIP?
Yes,
Okay.
but we are only partially integrated. And that's why it's a manual processing. I don't know what it would look like if you have a full INSIP. But regardless, your INSIP is still going to be checking out to a user group. So just figuring out, finding a title that matches on your ILLiad, WorldShare, whatever, saying this book is checked out to this library, figuring out what it shows in your Alma backend and what user group that's defined as, then creating your report that way. If you need individual help with this, feel free to reach out. As I said, it's important to just figure out what your catalog believes is checked out to your resource sharing platform that's about to go deactivated. Sorry. All right, some of the other things that we're going to want to be pulling as reports is some web reports. Now, for us, it is important at Chico State to be determining fill rates, how fast our turnaround time is. That data could conceivably be done after the fact, but ILLiad's web services or web reports make really nice graphics, really good interpretations of your turnaround time, most requested journals, and one of the one that I'm going to highlight pretty intensively is who we borrow from and who we lend from. So within your resource sharing platform for ILLiad, who your institution is borrowing from the most is someone that you should probably reach out to and ask to be integrated into our Rapido. So for example, you would be generating something similar to who we lend to, pulling out, obviously, I don't need to know that the CSU, which CSUs I lend to, because you guys are all into our Rapido partners. I obviously also don't need to know internal fields. That's not nearly as relevant, but filling out all of this, there is a screenshot on this, on the PowerPoint as well. So don't worry about taking down all of the group definitions. And this will be specific to your institution, how you cataloged in ILLiad, which groups are available. Generating this report will just say, these institutions you share with a lot. These institutions use you often to get books, and they are from ILLiad, and therefore they are not in Rapido, and we want to make sure that we tell them we will not be sharing with them soon because our resource sharing is going away in this form, and to consider integrating into our Rapido. So again, out of all over the time that I had set the parameters, Chapman University, some public libraries, these are all the people that we lend to the most. So when we reach out, you can say, hey, we lend to you this many books over this time. If you want to keep borrowing from us, you should integrate. It's a really compelling argument to have them consider an integration within Rapido. I strongly recommend, if you haven't already, pull these stats in order to figure out which libraries to contact to encourage strongly to integrate. One of the problems with this report is normally you would be using the policy directory in order to pull all of the data for the libraries, like their email address, their phone number, their that sort of thing. We will no longer have access to that when you get rid of WorldShare because that is a sign-in service. So the acronyms will no longer be relevant to you. You won't have their contact information. You would have to like individually search their catalog or their library on Google and get their contact information. Or before you lose your ILLiad, I recommend opening your main page and actually searching your entire contact book. Depending on how many of them you have, this could take a little while. What this is going to give you is every single contact that you have ever borrowed or shared with in ILLiad, with their email address, their phone number, their acronym, all of that data, and export it just like you did for all of these other cues. So exporting this file, saving it as something that you will remember, and then being able to cross-reference it to know, okay, Chapman University is someone that we borrow from a lot. We can go to Chapman University's contact information. Here is their physical address, their email address, and their, all of their loan profiles. It also will tell you which libraries you have reciprocal agreements with based on your exempt versus non-exempt status. So whether or not you bill them. Something to consider when you're trying to add them as partners, knowing whether or not they charge you. As I said, this is just going over how to export your contacts. It is important. As I said, we will no longer have access to the policy directory. It is a sign-in thing, so make sure that you're getting a copy of your address book before you lose access. Just knowing which institutions we share. The last thing that I'm going to bring up as a report that you should probably make if you haven't started doing already is your copyright processing. So you need to actually finalize your copyright from whichever platform is shutting down and send that finalized report and then getting that invoice to clear out your balance before the program goes away. So if you are doing article sharing at all in your ILLiads, your world shares, make sure that you follow whatever guidelines at your institution you use to do your copyright. Here are just some examples and links to some procedures that have already been outlined by other institutions. Other than that, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I wondered if anyone is going to do any kind of report about statuses and departments, since ILLiad tracks all that. Like you're borrowing from those, or if that matters.
Hold on one second, I'm so sorry. Um, I don't necessarily keep my data by departments, but you could. Like I said, conceivably, you could download your request completed from your ILLiad and see all of that data. You would just
It's
have to
one of the
man.
canned reports. I don't usually, I don't look at it very often, but
I mean, I see the value if you're trying to get purchasing for each or looking at usage by departments. I would encourage pull as many reports as you possibly can because they're already pre-made and it's much easier to pull them from the web reports than to have to like take the Excel spreadsheet and manipulate it yourself. I hope that answered the question. It looks like there's a few things in the chat. When you say the last, Christina's question, when you say the last day for accessing your data, I am not 100% sure whether or not it is on the 30th your account goes deactivated. I don't think it does. Um, but I would encourage, like I said, I picked my day like the week before and set my calendar reminder a week before um, to pull all of my stats and data prior to. I just wanted it to be as close to our close date so that I can have the most accurate list of what was checked out or still in process.
Yeah, because oh, hold on. Are you muted? Sorry. Because that's a Monday morning, I just wouldn't want people to come in Monday morning and then like it's too late. So maybe folks should do it Friday or whatever
Yeah.
their last day working before then is.
And like I said on my calendar reminder, mine's actually the 27th, 26th. I had it up. But well before the final date. So 27th, which is the Friday. Just a reminder, like that is the last day that I want to be pulling data from my ILLiad account because that's when ILLiad will be going away for us. It doesn't hurt to do it earlier. It's just if you were to get a lot of books returned before that date, then it may not be accurate and you would have to manually process some things. And hopefully it shouldn't be changing too much. Chris, you can absolutely copy it to a shared folder. I didn't for the sheer purpose that each campus has a different user group type. So my user group definition within my institution may not transfer to everyone else. But I'm happy to test it out on some campuses and make sure that it is pulling the right data.
I can also put instructions on the website on here's how you change what user group it's looking at. So they can still use the template. They just would have to change that one filter.
Not a bad idea. Yeah. Were there any other questions? I can keep going through the chat.
Hey, Christina,
Yeah.
because when we did have ILLiad, I didn't have an opportunity to run a lot of reports, but I do remember Stacy saying she downloaded a report of what was checked out specifically to patrons. So that way, like a patron history. So that way, if your patrons are like, I use my ILLiad history in my research to track this, that, and another, that it was something that we could offer to the patrons.
Mhm.
Luckily, we really only had like, I think one person, but we had the information available for them.
That is a really good idea. Yeah, pulling patron data. As I said, I would recommend taking
Well,
every single queue, canceled, completed, and downloading them and saving them in an archived file, shared archive file for your institution. So if you were to download your request finished from ILLiad, you would be able to search by patron, and then it would all be within one file.
okay.
And that is one of the recommended downloads. I don't think I've made it through all of the chat. Let's see. If you have, so Andrea's question is, you have it tied to a temporary location rather than a user group. That is totally fine. You would just change the way that the report is formatted. Instead of filtering out by user group, you would just change to temporary location, and whatever that said, it would be a really easy switch over. Same with Natalia, you could easily just change it to a user group. And that should still give you a report of everything checked out to that, or change it to a temporary location. You should be able to see everything that's checked out to that temporary location in the status of active request.
I'll make a duplicate version of the report that is made for changing locations instead of user groups, and I'll put both of them, the instructions on the website. I'll have that done this week.
Excellent. And it's not a bad idea to do it this week, because like I said, there is some cross-referencing that I would recommend doing, just making sure that your ILLiad or WorldShare is actually accurate to what is considered checked out. You just want to make sure that you've caught everything that your system believes is being processed within those portals before they're gone. Copyright and Rapido. For if you're already running articles through Rapido, I think there are some institutions that are doing articles through their WorldShare and their ILLiad still. So
There are a couple. The vast majority are running. They are filling some requests through ILLiad WorldShare, but it's only after they've gone through Rapido, and so all the copyright steps have been done through Rapido. So on those ones, you should be fine. But on any others, yes, definitely process copyright beforehand.
were there any other questions that I maybe missed in the chat? Well, awesome. I'm hoping that this is an easy transition for everyone and all of our data is great and perfect, and there's no need to cross-reference, but it doesn't hurt to do some due diligence, and I wish everyone the best of luck with this switchover. As I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to at least go over. I'm not saying that I know all the answers, but show what I'm doing here at Chico State. and at least brainstorm together. Because if you have a question, probably all of the rest of us do too. Hey, beyond that, I don't have anything more for the presentation. It looks like we're out pretty early. As I said, all of this will be posted or is already posted on our SharePoint, and the recording should also be posted there too. If you have any more questions, feel free to email me.
And for everyone that's here and available to stay beyond this time, we're going to open it up for some questions. And so thank you, Christina. That was really great. I appreciate all your time working on that. I know that these reports will be helpful in managing all of returns. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, y'all.